I'm afraid that Trumpism will last long after Trump. Call in today, 888-488-MARK, and we'll be on the air in 4 minutes.
On climate action this week, a stark contrast from the science denial and destruction of U.S. climate policy under the Trump administration.
Also good.
Biden's transition team announced this week the Biden White House will host a climate summit of the world's major economies within his first 100 days to begin rebuilding U.S. credibility on international climate policy.
We got a lot of rebuilding to do.
Biden also advanced his pledge for a whole-of-government approach on climate change. This week, Biden tapped former Environmental Protection Agency Administrator Gina McCarthy to head up domestic climate policy, a new cabinet-level position with authority to coordinate climate action across agencies and would dovetail with John Kerry's international role as global climate envoy. McCarthy's expertise will be useful in crafting climate policy in the executive branch if Republicans continue to hold the U.S. Senate.
You mean if they continue to hold the U.S. Senate hostage?
Biden also nominated former Michigan Governor Jennifer Granholm, who embraced renewable energy as governor of a Rust Belt state, to head up the Department of Energy, seen as a move to accelerate the Energy Department's advanced battery and clean energy research and U.S. automakers' transition to all-electric vehicles.
And yet the Energy Department deals with nuclear energy, nuclear security. Does Jennifer Granholm have any background experience at all in that?
No, but she is a competent administrator.
There you go. Just because she's a woman, you're taking her side.
We can own the electric vehicle market. With those 500,000 charging stations, we can put 1 million jobs back in Detroit and in the Midwest, building cars.
Biden highlighted his campaign pledge to build a national electric vehicle charging network in announcing former campaign rival Pete Buttigieg to head the sprawling Department of Transportation, the first millennial and first openly gay member to serve in a cabinet position. In accepting the nomination, Buttigieg highlighted infrastructure projects he spearheaded as a mayor in Indiana and noted that upgrading our transportation infrastructure will be a massive jobs generator.
At its best, transportation makes the American dream possible, getting people and goods to where they need to be, directly and indirectly creating good-paying jobs. America has given this administration a mandate to build back better. And step one in building back better, literally, is to build.
Finally, Washington State Governor Jay Inslee released a new state-level plan to create jobs in energy, transportation, and infrastructure over the next 2 years, with energy efficiency building retrofits, updating the state's electric grid and flood controls, electrifying the state's ferry system, and more, telling Time magazine that U.S. states are key to restoring U.S. credibility.
Every year we have more success in our states to be able to share with the rest of the world to demonstrate that America is in the game and is making progress.
Well, I don't know if we're in the game, but it will be good to get back in it. Soon, like now. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Right here, right now, watching the world wake up from history.
Live from our nation's capital, it's the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Good afternoon, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine, reporting live a very long distance from Washington, D.C. I'm actually in the town where I was born of Nashville, Tennessee, hanging out with my family for the holidays. In order to protect everybody from COVID, I had a test, and I made sure I was negative before I came down, and then I drove here 10 hours and was careful not to stop anywhere but to get gas until I made it home. So I am here, I am safe, my family is well. I hope you're well, because much of the nation is not. As you know, over the weekend we crossed the threshold of 300,000 Americans dead by COVID-19, by the novel coronavirus. There is, of course, hope around the corner with vaccines just starting, but we've got some pretty hard months to go. We still got a lot of tunnel left before we get to the light at the end of it. I don't know whether it's going to be 350,000 or 400,000, but a lot of Americans are going to die. So please be careful when you go outside. Put on a mask if you're in any indoor space, even if you're outdoors, if you're within 6 feet of someone, heck, even if you're within 10 or 15 feet of someone, put on a mask, wash your hands. Lives depend on it. So I know we're tired of the virus. I'm tired of it. We're all tired of it. The world is. But it's really up to you and me and everyone we know to stop this. Hospitals are crowded. The United States has dealt with this pandemic worse than probably any other nation on the planet, due, of course, to our current president, who doesn't have time to work in government anymore. In fact, his schedule is empty. He did pardon a turkey or two, but he's played lots of golf and has spent most of his time tweeting about the election he lost. Only he claims to think he won. Only he knows he lost, but he's telling everybody he won. And 50 to 70% of his supporters are deluded enough, they believe it. I want to talk this hour about the danger of alternative facts, because this has been a president of alternative facts, really his whole presidency. Ever since Kellyanne Conway said, yeah, those are the facts, but these are the alternative facts, we knew we were in for an administration that was all about the big lie. And of course, this is a man, Donald Trump, who has made his life's work lying to people, conning people, grifting people, right? I mean, this is the guy who came up with Trump University, which was a bunch of YouTube videos, or Trump Vodka, Trump Steaks, slapping his name on other people's buildings. This is the guy who put forward a ridiculous conspiracy theory that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, not in Hawaii, claimed to have people down there studying it, of course, never did, and on that racist lie became president. We've had plenty of presidents who were racist, plenty who were liars, but I don't know of another one who's used a racist lie as his primary means to achieve fame and to become president of the United States. Of course, it didn't stop once he became president. The Washington Post has documented, I've lost count. Is it 20,000, 30,000 lies? I'll have to check and see what the latest number is. I remember it was so many that it took an hour of every day he's been president, including, I guess, the sleeping time. Let's get the latest lie tally here. What does my Google tell me? 20,000 as of July 2020, more than 20,000 false statements. Doing my math, divided by 4 years, it's actually less than 4 years, 5,000 a year. Yeah, that comes down to one every couple hours, maybe one every hour, including sleeping time. I don't have to go into all the lies. I think you know them. Everything's a lie. Everything anyone says against him is a lie. And yet, apparently, some people believe him. Now, I know who doesn't believe him. The people who don't believe him are the Republican politicians. They all know he's lying. Maybe not the QAnon wacko in the House, but all the others do. They tell me they do. Republican lawmakers, I'm a delegate in Virginia. They tell me in Virginia, they tell me nationwide. Members of Congress, senators, behind the scenes, they all know he's lying. But they spread the lies. Why? Because they're afraid of the voters that have been lied to, but believe them. It's all a massive con. And of course, it all culminated in the incredibly frivolous, and frivolous is too frivolous a word to describe this seditious lawsuit. That's the word that the Pennsylvania Attorney General used, seditious, meaning treasonous. this attack on the United States, this anti-American lawsuit, whereby Texas said, you know what? We don't like how you voted, Pennsylvania and Georgia and Wisconsin and Michigan. And because we, and not even we Texans, because, 45% or more of Texans voted for Joe Biden, but because the majority in Texas is way gerrymandered, and so it's not a clear majority, but if 55% of Texas doesn't want other Americans to have the right to vote, then Texas insists that all other Americans have their votes thrown away. Well, you know what, Texas? The United States doesn't work for you, Texas. It's not like Texas is in charge and the rest of us 49 states are subservient to what the majority of Texans think. You know what, Texas? You don't have any right to complain about Pennsylvania's fair elections, or Arizona's fair elections, or Georgia, or Wisconsin, or Michigan's fair elections. Texas's complaint, you understand, is that Pennsylvania made it too easy for people to vote. They provided drop boxes. They allowed it to be convenient. They actually let people who wanted to vote register, even if they're black. Well, Texas had enough of that. Texas hates democracy. You know who also hates democracy? 2/3 of the Republicans in the House of Representatives. 2/3 or so, almost 2/3. It's close to 2/3. Signed this brief whereby Texas challenged the elections of other states on the ground that the other states made it too easy for people to vote. Texas didn't claim there were any fraudulent votes. They didn't claim that anyone, that dead people voted or any of that stuff. No, they just said, we don't like how Pennsylvania casts its votes. Well, Texas, I don't like how you cast your votes. Should we not count Texas votes? To call it frivolous is an understatement, because this is an extreme danger to our democracy. In 1860, when Abraham Lincoln became the president-elect of the United States, when he won enough votes with his new Republican Party to become the president, the southern states were angry. They wanted to keep slavery. They didn't want Lincoln, who had promised not to extend slavery into the territories. They wanted slavery to expand and to grow. They were angry. But you know what they didn't do? They didn't challenge Lincoln's election. They seceded from the Union, but they didn't challenge Abraham Lincoln's right to be president. South Carolina acknowledged that the Electoral College of 1860 voted for Abraham Lincoln. They didn't like it, and they seceded. But South Carolina never tried to take New York's vote away, or Massachusetts, or Illinois. The segregationist, treasonist Confederates who valued slavery over humanity and fought against the United States had more respect for our electoral system than these current House Republicans. Let that sit with you for a while. And here's a really good one. The Republicans challenging the election were elected by the same system. Some 14, 20, something like that. Republican members of the House are from Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin and Georgia. So the same systems they're calling corrupt elected them. Maybe they shouldn't be seated in the House of Representatives if they don't trust the election system that brought them there. Here's the thing. They know they're full of it. They know they're lying. They know that what they're saying has no basis in fact or law or logic or democracy. But they think, you know what? What's the harm? Yeah, we're lying to the American people. Yeah, we're damaging our democracy. Yeah, we're threatening it. What's the harm? And that's what I want to talk about this hour. Talk about harm. Alternatives. We'll be back after this.
If you're worried your friend may be struggling, remember, you don't have to be there to be there. You could say how are you or get a fake tattoo. You can ask with an app if it works for you. You could write them a text or knit them a sweater. If you can't be together, you could write them a letter. Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking. You could chat on the game, kick off your flip-flops. You can ask on your couch while you binge watch. However you do it, you gotta ask a friend. And if they don't share, you can ask again. Whatever gets you talking. Whatever gets you talking.
Reach out to a friend about their mental health. Learn how you can help at seizetheawkward.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and the JED Foundation.
I was in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean when it happened. There was a sudden jolt and our submarine crashed on the seafloor. We were in total darkness.
That's Dr. Dejana Figueroa, a marine biologist and STEM teacher, talking about a deep sea dive she'll never forget.
It's funny, when I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean. And there I was, 2 miles below the surface. But as a scientist, you prepare for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fixed the sub and finished our experiments. The dive was just too important. Every dive gives us glimpses at things few people ever get to see. Glowing creatures, fiery undersea volcanoes. When we got back to the surface, I kissed the ground and called my mom, of course. But you know what? I wouldn't trade that dive for anything.
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to discover new things and make the world a better place. She can STEM, so can you. Check out She Can STEM for more stories and inspiration. A message from the Ad Council.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1944. That was the day that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt rescinded Executive Order 9066. It had forcibly relocated over 120,000 Japanese Americans into internment camps. After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the government considered Japanese Americans a national security threat. By 1942, many were given less than a week's notice to sell and store all property. Whole families were rounded up and taken away to desolate areas in the west and southwest of the United States. Up to this point, many Japanese Americans in California were employed in the agricultural industry, some as tenant farmers. They were responsible for 40% of all produce grown in that state, whose crops were valued at $40 million annually. Over 6,000 farms consisting of 200,000 acres were confiscated. Once interned, they were subjected to dire living conditions with little in the way of running water, sanitary facilities, or medical care. They were subject to forced labor in the construction of camp buildings and cultivation of near barren lands. The government hoped to make the camps self-sufficient. In Poston, Arizona, they were made to build the infrastructure for Colorado River Tribe's reservation in order to consolidate other tribes onto the land. When Japanese Americans were finally released, most found their stored belongings stolen and their homes, jobs, and farms confiscated and redistributed. After the war, they continued to face violence, job and housing shortages, and racial discrimination. Ronald Reagan would sign the Civil Liberties Act in 1988. It acknowledged that internment was based on, quote, race prejudice, war hysteria, and a failure of political leadership. The act served as a formal apology and sought to distribute billions in reparations.
And now, the voice of reason in an unreasonable world, Mark Levine.
Welcome back to Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine, talking about the dangers, the peril, the curse of the alternative facts. You know, in the world we live in, it used to be, before Donald Trump, that facts mattered. Really, there was a time when truth and lies were different things, when you had facts. And they were facts. When this table was a table. When 2 + 2 equaled 4 and always equaled 4, whether you were a Republican or a Democrat. You could do math in those days. We could send people to the moon in those days. There was a time when truth mattered. There was a time, believe it or not, when Bill Clinton lied about having an affair, a consensual affair with an adult, the Republicans insisted that his lie about something that, let's face it, a lot of politicians have done, was serious enough that they should throw him out of office because they claimed that truth mattered. I know it's hard to believe. Way back in 2016, before the Trump era, back when all of us were innocent, truth mattered. There was no such thing as an alternative fact because it was either factual or it wasn't factual. I know it's hard to remember back to those days. We call them the before times, the truth times. We can have those days again, but I fear they won't begin on January 20th when President-elect Joseph R. Biden becomes President Joe Biden. Because even that fact is disputed by the purveyors of the alternative facts. So Donald Trump, I went through and I looked at the list of lies, and he's gotten worse and worse and worse over time. So I said it was more than one an hour. It is, because as he entered the final stretch of his campaign season, according to the Washington Post fact checker, as of October 22nd, he made more than 50 false or misleading claims a day. In fact, the fact checker cannot keep up. So I was wrong. I apologize. I was wrong to say that Donald Trump lied every hour on the hour for 24 hours a day, including the time he's sleeping on average. No, he's lied twice an hour on the hour for 24 hours. And assuming he sleeps sometimes, it's got to be more often than that. As of August 27th, the tally was 22,200 claims. And then they gave up. It broke the bank. Quote, "We've been unable to update the database as of today because we are 8 weeks behind. We maintain this database mostly in our spare time in addition to our day jobs." You know what? Bravo, Washington Post. By the way, those 22,000 plus lies are only as of August. That's only the ones they caught, right? I mean, those are the only ones that he said publicly and were written down and that they could go and check objectively to see that they were untrue. That doesn't account things he said in private. That doesn't count for things that he says that we don't know if they're true. Like when he says he denies having a, how do we use the euphemism for this? Yellow rain, I don't know what the term is, with some prostitutes, Russian prostitutes. That hasn't been proven. Could be true. But we're just talking about 22,000 things that we know he said publicly that are false. It's hard to lie that much. You have to work at it. If you tried to lie twice every hour, and if you're up, I don't know, 16 hours a day, you get 8 hours sleep 3 times an hour because you got to make up for that sleeping time. Could you do it? Could you lie 3 times an hour every single day for more than 1,000 days? It's hard to do, even if you want to. But here's the thing I find so strange. I don't find it strange that any intelligent person knows he's lying. I don't find it strange that all the Republicans elected in government, except a few extreme wackos, know he's lying. Ted Cruz, who is smarmy and indecent and a horrible person, but not a stupid person, knows Donald Trump is lying. And Ted Cruz was ready to defend this lawsuit, oral argument before the U.S. Supreme Court, that Texas could unilaterally throw away other states' votes. By the way, the Supreme Court, not one that I praise often, right? I'm not a fan of the Trumpists on the Supreme Court, nor the way conservatives have packed the court. Not a fan at all. And yet they had to agree there was no judicially cognizable right of Texas to complain about other states' elections. But Ted Cruz was ready to make the argument. Not because he doesn't know it's frivolous and false. And indeed, I really think we need to start punishing the lawyers who bring these cases. 86 judges have thrown out some 60 cases by Trump lawyers, and many lawyers, to their credit, have withdrawn from these cases until the only ones that are left are, Rudy Giuliani and a few other wackos, like the woman who claimed that there was a dead Venezuelan dictator apparently behind election shenanigans she couldn't prove. Yeah, so most self-respecting lawyers have left the case, including the one that when he claimed that he was suing because there were no Republican observers in Pennsylvania, was asked by the judge if there were observers for Trump in the room and had to concede, there's a non-zero number in the room. You see, when you don't tell the truth to a court, you can get punished. It's one of the things we learn as a lawyer. You are an officer of the court. They teach you this in law school. They teach you this in legal ethics. And you may think lawyers have no ethics. But we lawyers know that when a judge says, Mr. Levine, as an officer of the court, are you stating this is true? And if I say yes, and I know it's not true, I can be disbarred. I can be held in contempt. I can be thrown in jail. So yeah, judges take truth seriously, which is why 86 judges, from the most liberal to the most conservative, including many judges appointed by Trump himself, all threw these claims out of. What's the goal? What are they trying to do? Is it money? Is it power? It's both. And we'll go into the details. Hey, if you want to call in, 888-48-MARK, 888-48-6275, right back after this.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work.
Sorry, I'm late.
Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working.
Who, me?
Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey.
Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
From kitchen tables worldwide, you can hear a chorus of parents chastising their children with the same refrain. Stop playing with your food. Children aside, this rebuke needs to be loudly directed at the profiteers of industrial agriculture. They keep toying with the very nature of food, not to benefit consumers, family farmers, workers, or the environment, but to fatten the profits of Silicon Valley tech giants, food monopolists, and Wall Street financiers. Meet Recombinetics, Inc. It's a high-tech gene manipulation corporation with bioengineers in its labs remaking farm animals. Pigs, for example. Recombinetics wants to mess with the very DNA of Mother Nature's oinkers to make them produce bigger litters to supply the pork factories of brand-name marketers. It's also genetically altering milk cows to withstand hotter weather, so climate change won't reduce the output of huge dairy corporations. Of course, this corporate government collusion to build Franken animals faces a high hurdle in the marketplace, for consumers have shown again and again that they don't want the food they put on their family tables tampered with. The tamperers, however, have a solution to that problem: secrecy. The industry is lobbying to outlaw any requirement that milk and meat produced by genetically altered animals be labeled as such. Better to keep consumers in the dark because, well, if given a free choice, people might reject Recombinetics in favor of natural food. This is Jim Hightower saying, the industrializers are not out to make food better or more affordable for us, but strictly to make it more profitable for them. Rather than remaking animals and the marketplace to benefit corporations that play with our food, let's remake the corporate system so that it cooperates with nature and serves the common good.
Back to the Aggressive Progressive, Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine, talking about the dangers of alternative facts, really the curse of the alternative facts. So we know, and it's been well established, not just from me, not just from the fact that I'm telling you they said it, but most Republicans. Talk to Mitt Romney, talk to Anthony Scaramucci, talk to people who support Donald Trump that will tell the truth on TV. Will say, you know, Republicans know they're lying. They know they have no case. They know there's no fraud of any significance. They know that Joe Biden won the election. After all, in 50 states and the District of Columbia this Monday, meeting in the state capitals, the electors came together and they did what they're supposed to do. They voted for the people they were supposed to vote for. And Joe Biden won the election with 306 electoral votes, actually 2 more than Donald Trump, because a couple of his electors were faithless electors back in 2016. And that was supposed to be it. That was supposed to be the moment. A reporter had asked Donald Trump, hey, are you going to leave the White House if you lose the Electoral College? Actually, I'll ask Marco Moli to find that clip and play it. It's a very short one. He basically said, well, sure I will. You know I will. How dare you suggest I won't? Blah, blah, blah. Well, that time came and went, and he's still claiming something. I don't think he really knows what it is. It's laughable how bad these lies are. I mean, if your 3-year-old had chocolate smeared all over her face and said, Daddy, I didn't eat the chocolate chip cookie from the jar, you would laugh, knowing the lie was so bad. Well, you know what? There's less evidence that she ate the cookie than there is that Donald Trump lost the election. So what's the point? We've talked about the point in the past. The point for Donald Trump, for the Republicans, is grifting, conning. Trump has made more than $250 million just by falsely claiming fraud. Let me repeat that. $250 million. Remember, this guy is $400 million in debt to Russians and Saudis, and he won't disclose his tax returns, so we don't know all the people he's in debt to. Foreign interests, the ones who've been blackmailing him and under his thumb. He's been under their thumb. I guess he'll have the money to pay back a lot of those debts now. Though we'll have to see if the New York authorities think that he can transfer that money legally. My guess is he can't. But anyway, $250 million. All from lying to people who thought they were giving money to help his lawyers. Well, if you've maxed out on all you can give to Donald Trump, and you've maxed out on all you can give the Republican Party, and you give several $1,000s, which most of his people don't. Most give $100 donations here, $50, $250, $5. Yeah, if you give several $1,000s, a little bit might go to these lawyers filing these frivolous lawsuits. Most of it just goes to Donald Trump and his political organization. And it's not just the cash, which obviously Trump will do anything for the cash. It's also that Trump wants to stay in power. He wants to remain relevant. Most ex-presidents, after they lose an election, fade from the stage. Obama did, George W. Bush did, Bill Clinton did, George Bush Sr. did, Ronald Reagan did, Jimmy Carter did, right? I mean, you name it. Ford, Nixon, they all kind of faded from the stage. This guy won't. He's simultaneously saying two things that actually are self-contradictory. He's saying, I didn't lose this election. I'm going to serve 4 more years now, and I'm going to run in 2024. I got news for you, Donald. The 22nd Amendment to the U.S. Constitution says you only get 2 terms. So if you won this time, you can't run in 24. And if you're running in 24, that means you didn't win this time, and that means Joe Biden is president-elect. Simple logic. But this isn't about logic, is it? Again, back when Trump, I guess, thought he was going to win a lawsuit or two, he said he would leave if he lost the Electoral College. Right? Let's roll that clip. Let's listen to what he had to say. So the question is very simple. If the Electoral College votes for Biden, which they did, are you not going to leave the building? Oh, surely I will. How dare you say that? How dare you suggest that I would ever? I almost wish he wouldn't. I'd kind of like to see him, try to hold on to the stairs as the Secret Service pulls him out by the legs. I don't know. That's as much of a farce as the rest of his presidency. What's the purpose of these lies? And they know they're lies. Melania's packing up, trying to go to Mar-a-Lago, but Mar-a-Lago doesn't want them because Donald Trump lied in a contract back in the 90s that he would never make it his residence because they had to zone it differently, and he was trying to get that tax benefit. Yeah, he knows he's gone. But who are the people that don't? Who are the 50 million Americans of the 74 that voted for Trump who don't believe he lost the election? So the 81 million who voted for Joe Biden, 7 million vote difference in a massive landslide election. Yeah, we're okay. And the 74 million, maybe a third of them have some idea of reality in their brains. But let's say it's only 50 million Americans, voters, and their families. So include their families, 1 in 4 Americans cannot recognize reality. That's scary. And it's particularly scary when Donald Trump is recommending violence. He and state legislators are implying, suggesting that we need to have some kind of overturning of this election. And some of his supporters, yes, have said they can't guarantee there'll be no violence. Meanwhile, many of his supporters have gotten the nod and are threatening people in Georgia, in Michigan, in Arizona, threatening people who, not even the elected leaders, but the guy in Georgia who's the election software guy who was just doing his job, some 20-something. And in Georgia, all these people are Republicans, right? Raffensperger is a Republican. the Secretary of State. Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, who did nothing more than he was required to do by law, which is to say, yeah, this is a certified count. He's so terrible that we used to complain about him. Remember, he's the one that removed hundreds of thousands of black names from the Georgia voter rolls so that he could beat Stacey Abrams so she couldn't get those people to the polls. And God bless Stacey Abrams. She managed to do it for the presidential race, and well, we sure hope that she can do it again January 5th in the Georgia runoffs, where 2 senators will determine whether or not we have a 50-50 Senate with Vice President Kamala Harris casting the deciding vote, or a Mitch McConnell obstructionist Senate that will do its best to, well, do what it's doing now, right? Harm the economy, make sure as many people die of COVID as possible, make sure that our economy is terrible, suddenly become fiscal conservatives. This is one thing about Republicans. Every time a Democrat is president, they are fiscal conservatives. Every time a Republican is president, they believe in massive, massive, massive debt, which is why the debt of Republicans' presidents is always far higher than Democratic presidents. Republicans believe that in good times, you may know the story of the Bible, Joseph's dream, the 7 lean cows eating the 7 fat cows. I don't know if you remember this. The idea was to teach the Pharaoh of Egypt that in good times you store your grain so that in famine you can eat the grain you've stored. Nice lesson. Republicans do the opposite. They believe that when times are good, when unemployment is low, when you can afford a surplus the way Bill Clinton did when he was president, they believe in massive, 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 massive debt. Right when we can afford it. They believe in gorging yourselves on years of plenty. But when famine comes, and we have a pandemic, and people are suffering and dying and out of a job and being evicted from their homes, then they want to turn the screws. Not because they love to see Americans suffering. I don't think they mind it too much, because if they did, they'd do something about it. But they do it because Democrats are in power. And if they can just harm America enough, that may mean that Joe Biden has only 1 term, you see. It's a means to an end. They don't want to destroy America and American lives. They just know that by doing so, it will help them politically. So the massive $1 trillion deficit bills they passed when Donald Trump was president, yeah, they're not going to do it in a time of pandemic. That's part of the danger of these alternative facts. We'll be right back after this.
America, your children have an amazing superpower. They can help save lives by not having play dates. That's right. By replacing get-togethers with virtual play dates and video chats, they can help slow the evil spread of germs. And if your superheroes do go outside, make sure they continue their superhero wing by staying 6 feet away from others to protect everyone in America land. Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council. America, your children have an amazing superpower. That's right. They can help save lives by simply washing their hands. Just 20 seconds of thorough hand washing after they've coughed or sneezed or been outside can help fight against the dastardly spread of germs. Armed with only soap and water and hands, your superhero can protect you, your family, and everyone out there in America land. Amazing! Find out more at coronavirus.gov. A message from the CDC and the Ad Council.
He was the heart of your family, and he taught you our history. He helped you fix your first flat. He was the best backyard DJ around, and every time he'd tell a story, he'd own the room. But now more than ever, he may feel alone. Today, older adults and their loved ones are struggling to connect, in a time when connection has never been more important. But there is something we can do. Embrace our older loved ones through StoryCorps Connect. With StoryCorps Connect, you can honor seniors remotely with an interview about their life. Every interview will be archived at the Library of Congress, becoming part of American history, so that years from now, future generations can listen in.
All right, Grandpa, what's one piece of advice you have for me?
Just 3 words, sweetheart. Live with courage. The man that had the best stories still has plenty of stories to tell. So connect virtually and share the conversation of a lifetime at StoryCorpsConnect.org/AARP. Connect, honor, share. StoryCorps Connect. A message from AARP, StoryCorps, and the Ad Council.
Welcome to Code WACK.
your podcast on America's broken healthcare system and how Medicare for All could help. I'm your host, Brenda Gazzar. Dr. Susan Rogers is at the forefront of the fight for single-payer healthcare and healthcare equity in America. She's the new president of Physicians for a National Health Program. When she went to the University of Illinois Medical School in 1975, U.S. hospitals had been integrated for less than a decade. She said the older white attending physicians who were training her didn't believe she should be there.
They had grown up in this totally segregated healthcare community, and it was a struggle to prove that you were smart enough to do that. And I look back at some of the evaluations, and they were totally unfair.
Her first medical school rotation was OBGYN.
And I read and read, and I knew that I knew what I was talking about. But my evaluation says, although I wasn't smart, I worked hard, so he passed me. And I knew that that was totally wrong. I went to the dean, and the dean took me up there. And it was an older white guy who was known for his racism. He said, well, if you don't believe me, you can talk to the residents. And I wish I had called his bluff. But even then, I don't know if the residents would have supported me versus supporting him. I look at where I am now, and the fact that I was personally able to see that that wasn't fair and that I didn't let it convince me that I shouldn't be there. And it's still a struggle today.
Get the full Code Wax story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code Whack wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform around the country. Until next time, stay healthy.
And now, the voice of reason in an unreasonable world, Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm your host, Mark Levine. So what is the curse of the alternative facts? The Republicans right now are actually really happy. Even though, yes, more than 7 million Americans preferred Joe Biden over their guy, Donald Trump, they won a lot of local elections. They're thrilled they're going to be able to gerrymander again. Let's face it, they would have lost Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania years ago if they counted every vote, but they don't have to. At least not for state legislatures, because the way gerrymandering works is, right, you can win 40% statewide, 45%, and still control. They're happy that they won a few more seats in the House of Representatives. Remember, these are gerrymandered seats. They're not based on the real vote. They're based on the fake vote, not the fake vote, the systemic misuse, undemocratic form of gerrymandering. It's legal. It's just wrong. And they're thrilled because they're gonna stymie Joe Biden. They're going to work really, really hard to harm the economy, to not give us the aid we need at a time we most need it. In fact, the only reason why, Mitch McConnell said this, the only reason why he's going to cave in and get some paltry amount of aid before Christmas is because the Georgia runoffs are coming up. And he's worried about losing those 2 seats. He said it. He said, you know, Kelly's in trouble. David Perdue's in trouble, Kelly Loeffler. Otherwise, once they get past January 5th, they're going to work systematically at harming the economy the way they did under Obama, because it'll help them get elected. Now, I don't mean to say that all Republicans are this way. There are patriotic Republicans and conservatives, people like Mitt Romney, conservatives like Ben Sasse or George Will, people who put their country above their party. I'm not saying they're liberal. I'm saying that they care about their country. They admit facts. Like the Secretary of State of Georgia, a Republican, who admitted the fact that Biden won Georgia. I'm concerned for all the Americans who actually believe this nonsense, who are turning off Fox News because it won't lie to them enough and going to sources more likely to lie to them. I'd seen this in Russia. I know that many, I think most Russians know that Vladimir Putin is lying to them, that there is no independent media left in Russia. What little there is, that tends to be shut down or the people jailed. And when they can vote, Russians are voting against their dictatorship. But there were always some that supported it. Heck, 40-odd% of Germans supported Hitler. There, I'm sure, are some North Koreans that support Kim Jong-un. I know there are Russians that support Putin. For some people, authoritarianism is comforting. If you're a sheep, you don't want to think for yourself. You want to be led around. You want to believe in law and order. There are people that like hierarchy. There are people that like monarchy. There are people that like kings. But that's not what America's ever been about. We began as a revolt against kings. We began with a radical document that says that all men are created equal. Yeah, it was written by a slaveholder. Yeah, it didn't include women. But even the idea that all men were created equal was a radical document in 1776, when Thomas Jefferson wrote that the government only derives its just powers by the consent of the governed. Democracy's hard. You got to trust people to have some knowledge. One of the reasons why the founders were afraid of pure democracy, and that's why they put in this stupid electoral college, is because they were afraid we would be misled, the people would be misled. And Trump has shown that, yeah, the people can be misled. Luckily, not the majority, but a hefty minority. I remember once going to West Virginia as part of a radio story and meeting a woman there, an elderly woman, who insisted that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, and she had the proof. We asked her for the proof. She pulled out a shoebox, and the shoebox was article after article after article. No documents, no birth documents, but plenty of articles from some pretty incredulous sources, all claiming things that weren't true. What does it mean when you have 50 million or more Americans believe alternative facts? What does it mean when we can't talk to each other anymore? We don't have Walter Cronkite on the news telling us that's the way it is, and everyone knows, right or left, Walter Cronkite gets it right. It leads to a divided society. It leads to, well, Rush Limbaugh's suggesting secession, or at least banning it about as a possibility. I fear we are more divided now as a country than we have been since the U.S. Civil War. And Patrick Moynihan once said, you have the right to your opinions, but you don't have the right to your own facts. When the facts get distorted, we're all in trouble. You know, I believe in a woman's right to choose what to do with her own body. There are certainly people who believe that an egg and a sperm are sacred, and once joined together, they have to be a human, even if you have to imprison the woman. We disagree on abortion. We don't disagree on fact. Alternative facts are a curse. Perhaps the best example of that is George Orwell's 1984, when the countries are perpetually at war and people are told to hate one and then another, and eventually told 2 + 2 = 5, along with war is peace and freedom is slavery and ignorance is strength. George Orwell got a lot right. He was just 36 years too early. I'm worried about this country. It's going to be really hard to be President Joe Biden. And what worries me the most is not that the elected Republicans don't know they're lying. Of course they know they're lying. They're lying to protect their own lies. People were lied to. Republican office holders believe they have to continue the lie, or the people who've been lied to will get mad at them for telling them the truth, and they'll be thrown out of office. A lie begets a lie begets a lie. A lie is halfway around the world while the truth is just putting on its shoes. It's an old saying. Will it stop? Will it stop when Joe Biden is president of the United States and Donald Trump is just some guy tweeting at Mar-a-Lago while fighting his eviction there? I don't know. I don't know. I do know this. In order to reach someone who's part of a cult, someone who believes ridiculous, crazy conspiracy theories and other untruths, and I once had a friend in a cult, people who give up all their money, all their well-being to some fearless leader who always tells them what they think is true. It's hard to get someone out of a cult. If you try to pull them out of the cult, if you try to tell them that their fearless leader is lying to them, they resist even more. Aha, you're the bad guy. You're trying to take me out of that cult, Mark. I believe the lies even more. Do you know how you get someone out of a cult? Experts say you love them. You talk about their problems. You find out what's going on in their lives. Maybe it's a money issue. Maybe it's a personal problem. Maybe they had a fight with their spouse or their kids. Maybe someone's ill. Maybe they're worried about dying. Maybe they're worried about losing their job. You talk to them. You put aside for the moment the cult and the craziness, and you show folks, human to human, that you care about what they're going through. And this is not a quick fix. This is not a ding, and then they suddenly leave the cult. But over time, that's how you get someone to leave a cult. Over time, we have to reach out to the Trump voters, even as we're incredulous that they could be so blind as to believe these alternative facts. We have to lift the curse of the alternative facts with love. That doesn't mean giving in to their craziness, but it does mean showing the ordinary human compassion that we should all always show for each other. Because when people aren't insecure, they can be taught to think for themselves. No one should want to be a sheep. Everyone should want to be a thinking, rational human being. That's a tough, tough task. But if anyone can do it, I think Joe Biden can. This guy oozes empathy. And I wish him luck as the next president of the United States. This is Mark Levine signing off.